Hello everyone. Punch seal and non-alignment. Punch seal and non-alignment are the foundations of India's foreign policy. Punch seal. It was on April 29, 1954 that Punch seal or the five principles of peaceful coexistence were first formally enunciated in the Agreement on Trade and Intercourse between the Tibet region of China and India. It was stated in the preamble to this agreement that the two governments had resolved to enter into the agreement on the basis of five principles, namely mutual respect for each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty, mutual non-aggression, mutual non-interference, equality and mutual benefit, peaceful coexistence. In June 1954, when the Chinese Premier Zhou Enlai visited India, he and his Indian counterpart Jawaharlal Nehru, in a joint statement, elaborated their vision of Panchsheel as the framework for the relations between the two countries, as well as the basis on which relations with other countries should be maintained. The two leaders expressed the hope that Panchsheel will also help in creating an area of peace which has circumstances permit can be enlarged, thus lessening the chances of war and strengthening the cause of peace all over the world. As per the documents of the Ministry of External Affairs, Panchsheel was incorporated into the 10 principles of international peace and cooperation put forward in the declaration issued by the April 1955 Bandung Conference of 29 Afro-Asian countries. The universal relevance of Panchsheel was emphasized when its tenets were incorporated in a resolution on peaceful coexistence presented by India, Yugoslavia, and Sweden and unanimously adopted on December 11, 1957 by the United Nations General Assembly. And in 1961, the Conference of Non-Aligned Nations in Belgrade accepted Panchsheel as the basic principles at the center of the non-alignment. The global environment that India faced after independence was very different from what existed before the Second World War. The major players on the world stage before the war, namely the United Kingdom, France, Germany, and Japan, lay subdued, their vast empires shrunken or shrinking fast. The United States, which had followed an isolationist policy keeping aloof from active international involvement, became dramatically active. The Soviet Union had acquired unprecedented influence in Eastern Europe, besides gaining recognition as a powerful state for crushing the German might on the Eastern Front, where most of the German military casualties had occurred. If the US demonstrated its nuclear weapon capability in 1945, the USSR followed suit with its own nuclear test in 1949. The Cold War that began in the wake of the Second World War had no precedent in history. Almost the entire developed world was divided into two opposing nuclear-armed blocs, with the US and the USSR leading as superpowers. The balance of power diplomacy of the pre-war years thus disappeared from the industrialized countries. The Third World became a surrogate field for superpower competition. Meanwhile, decolonization was proceeding apace and more independent countries were emerging, mostly in Asia and Africa. China was aligned with the Soviet Union till the mid-1950s. India found itself the largest country with the ability to maneuver between two blocs. At this point of time, the Soviet Union did not possess the economic or military support capability to influence the countries emerging from the colonial yoke. It was the West which tried to incorporate the newly independent countries into its strategic grouping. Alignment with the West was economically attractive, but it would have created a dependent relationship which was seen by most of the newly independent countries as obstructive to a self-reliant development. The idea of aligning with the communist bloc was not possible for India in spite of its socialist leanings. It could not visualize a Chinese type reconstructing of the society and economy being basically attuned to a liberal democratic political vision. Political non-alignment was therefore prudent as well as pragmatic. The principles of non-interference in the domestic affairs of other countries and maintenance of one's own sovereignty, which are the basic postulates of India's foreign policy, evolved into the crystallization of the concept of non-alignment. The term non-alignment got currency in the post-Bandung Conference 1955. Non-alignment implies the active refusal of a state to align itself with either party in a dispute between the two power blocs. In the Conference of Non-Aligned Powers, the first non-alignment movement or NAM summit held in Belgrade in 1961 and attended by 36 Mediterranean and Afro-Asian powers, Jawaharlal Nehru explained the essence of non-alignment. We call ourselves the Conference of Non-Aligned Countries. Now the word non-aligned may be differently interpreted, but basically it was used and coined almost with the meaning non-aligned with greater power blocks of the world. Non-aligned has a negative meaning, but if you give it a positive connotation, it means nations which object to this lining up for war purpose, military blocs, military alliances and the like. Therefore, we keep away from this and we want to throw our weight and such as it is in favor of peace. Non-alignment is the characteristic feature of India's foreign policy. India was one of the founder members of NAM. In the Cold War era, India refused to favor any superpower and remained non-aligned. Non-alignment, however, is not to be confused with neutrality. A neutral state remains inactive or passive during hostilities between two blocs. Neutrality is maintained basically in times of war, whereas non-alignment was relevant both in times of war and peace. Neutrality is equivalent to passivity. A neutral country has no opinions, positive or negative, on issues at all. However, adherence to non-alignment is to have positive and constructive opinions on international issues. India has firmly and convincingly asserted its non-aligned and not neutral stand on various issues. Non-alignment as one of the principles of India's foreign policy attempts to promote international peace, disarmament and territorial independence. It aims at the democratization of international relations by putting an end to imperialism and hegemony and establishing a just and equal world order. Like, share and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you. Bye.